to In the News for January 30th, 2026. I am Brett Burney from appsandlaw.com.
And this is Jeff Richardson from iPhone JD. Hey, Brett.
Hi, Jeff. I'm still a little cold here up in there in Ohio. I don't think you had any snow down there in New Orleans, but it's, I think it's, let me see right now. Oh, it's 4 degrees outside. We're still a little cold. Even the dog doesn't even want to go outside now, which is crazy. So I'm thrilled to know that there's plenty of news that was happening this past week to keep me warm and inside. First off, Apple released a brand new product. Well, I guess, okay, maybe an updated version of the product. We're talking about AirTags. You know, we've been talking about this, I feel like, for 2 or 3 months, like we suspected. In fact, I think it was even last fall, we suspected maybe Apple would come out with something, and they didn't. And we're like, okay, well, maybe they're still working on it. And apparently they were. The original AirTag, you said, was released almost 5 years ago. Here is your review from May 4th, 2021. We love AirTags. And now I think I'm going to love them even more. Some really good updates here.
Indeed. So here they are. They're in my hand right now.
Oh, you got them. You got some.
I got them. And I will tell you, on the one hand, it's a minor update. Apple doesn't have a new number. The old ones are called an AirTag. The new one's just called an AirTag. And in fact, if you look at this package, what I'm holding in my hand is a package of like 4. There's nothing on the front of the package that tells you that this is the 2nd generation AirTag.
Oh,
and if you look at the back of the package, you need to zoom all the way in to this tiny little print that's so tiny you need like a magnifying glass to read it. And it does say, if I could look very closely, 2nd generation.
Your magnifying glass.
So that's it. So like I need to look super, super close to double check that it is the AirTag 2nd generation. But this is actually a good thing. I like the fact that the new version is exactly the same size. For all intents and purposes, the same weight. I mean, I guess technically it's a tiny bit weight, but not you'd have to put it on a scale to measure it. But everything's the size, which is good because it means that for 5 years now, we have all of these cases and holding things and everything else. For example, for my luggage, I have this cheap little thing that Belkin makes that cost a few bucks. It's plastic. It's just like a little, it puts it on there. Or for my keys too, or my keys are behind me right now. But I've got just in fact, you have a picture of it right there from 5 years ago.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Well, that's actually that one. But if you scroll down a little bit more for my keys there, you see that tiny little thing there, that it's just the tiniest little thing that lets me put my AirTag on my keychain. And I have been using that for 5 years. And all I did was I opened it up. I took out the old AirTag. I put in a new AirTag, now I've got the new one in there. So anyway, I like the fact that it's backwards compatible. So why would you care about this? The reason that you would care about it is because it's everything that you like about an AirTag is better. I mean, you already like the fact that it's so small and everything else. But, the key is when you misplace something because you can't find it, you misplace it, or it's been stolen, God forbid. And with the AirTag, you can find it. And so it uses an updated version of Bluetooth. And remember, the way that AirTags work is if somebody else has their iPhone in the vicinity of your AirTag, it picks up the location. And so many people have iPhones in the world that, at an airport, if your baggage is at the wrong claim or something like that, someone's going to have an iPhone around there. But because this new AirTag has just a little bit better Bluetooth, it's going to be a little bit easier for someone else's iPhone or other Apple device to sense where it is and report back to Apple. Unit number 1234567 is right over here in the left part of this room. And then second of all, when you actually go to find your AirTag, you go to the Find My app and it will, show you where it is. But one of the really cool things about Find My is when you get into that mode where it has like an arrow and it actually says not just, you're getting warmer, you're getting colder, but it has this arrow that says it is right that direction. And it is, 16 feet from where you are now, and you can get closer and closer. That is what makes it truly, truly useful. And that's pretty impressive. That's Apple's ultra wideband technology. It's actually 3D, so it knows where you are, not just if it's left, right, up, but up, down. And so, the few times, fortunately, I don't lose things that often, but when I do, like, where in the world are my keys? It totally works. And so the new version, and again, I will say I just got these at the end of the day yesterday. I haven't tested them yet, which is why I haven't written a review yet, of course. But
Okay.
The selling point is that it's going to be more precise. So like I saw one review say like I had two of them next to each other and I'm across my house, and the old
Yeah.
one, my phone was just very vague, like it's over there. But the new one was much more precise of it's that direction, it's that far away. So, it's going to make it a little bit more convenient. Plus, another thing about AirTags is if you can't find one, you can make them beep. And you can just use your ears to listen, like where are they?
Right.
And so the newer speaker is 50% louder. So again, you might not, and I've had this happen before, like if something falls between your couch cushions, it might muffle the sound. And so you might not hear it from a couple rooms away.
Oh,
But with the
yeah.
louder speaker, I guess the idea is it'll be a little bit easier. We'll have to see. I haven't tested it in practice. It's also a slightly different speaker too. The tone is a little bit higher. I saw
Yeah, I like
one.
this
Yeah, go
was
ahead.
who was this? Ben Lovejoy, right?
Uh-huh.
He put them together. Apparently the chime was the F note before, but
Uh-huh.
now it's the G note.
Oh,
And
so
he's
there
got
you
this little
go.
video in here to where it does sound different. And I
Mhm.
think he talks about it in here a little bit that theoretically it's a little bit easier to hear from far away, or it kind of pierces a little bit more than the other one did. I'm not really sure, but Ben Lovejoy puts this little video in here to show you the difference.
Yes, I get. You probably will never notice unless you hear the two tones side by
Sure,
side. If you
exactly.
click on that video, you can hear the two tones, but I guess it's better to hit the I was going to say hit the G spot. I don't want to have an NSFW
Okay.
ranking here, but let's just say it's a new key. So
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
again, these are minor changes. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, what are they going to do with an AirTag? It's not going to do your taxes, right?
Yeah.
There's only
Yeah.
so many things that you want an AirTag to do, and everything that you want it to do, this is going to be a little bit better. So it's been 5 years. Of course, the technology is different. You would expect Apple to do something
Yeah.
different. And another change that Apple is not advertising, but that some folks have figured out is Apple wants you to use an AirTag for good, but they don't want you to use it for evil. Like, for example, trying to stalk an ex-wife or something, or a
Right.
former spouse. And so, as you probably know, if someone else's AirTag is with you and is following you around, your iPhone will give you an alert of, hey, somebody else's AirTag has been really close to you for the last 12 hours, just so that you can know
Right.
about it. And this has happened before when like my wife took my luggage that had my AirTag on it. And she's like, okay, I understand that I have my husband's luggage with his AirTag.
Yeah.
So that's why it's with me. But in case it was something nefarious, you would want to know about it. And one thing that bad guys would try to do with the old AirTags is they would open them up and remove that speaker so that it doesn't beep to alert you that it's
Mm,
near you. And according to the reviews that I've read, Apple has done something to make it even harder to remove that speaker. So, whatever. This is not something I'll be able to test, but I presume that Apple did that. Maybe there are many reasons they did it. I don't know if this was the intention or a side effect, but
right.
it'll be a little bit harder for bad guys. Now, again, if you're truly a bad guy, you're just not going to buy an AirTag. You'll go to Amazon and find some no-name tracking device that doesn't have a speaker. But but
Right.
at least Apple's devices will not be used for bad quite as much. So anyway, I think it's a nice upgrade. I don't know that you need to replace one that you already have
Right.
if it works fine. Although since I did buy some new ones, I decided that like for my keys, which is one of my most important ones, I might as well put the new one in there. And then the
Sure.
one that was in my keys, I'm just going to use that in something else because I was thinking of getting some new AirTags anyway for a couple of things that I have. So but it's nice that like, they're better. So I think this is a nice improvement. And again, big picture, it's our first new Apple product of the year, so now we can get ready for more of them.
I the only change I think I would have liked to have seen would just to be thinner, or like, because it sort of has a little bit of a bulbous thing, right? When these first came out 5 years ago, people were complaining because you couldn't easily slip it into a wallet, for example, right? So it was a little bulbous, and I guess I would have liked it if it could have been maybe a little thinner.
Mhm.
But I think the issue there is that it's the battery, right? It still uses, in fact, I've got some, this is my package of the CR2032 battery, right? I get several of these packages so that I have some on hand because it uses the same battery. Now that's great. I think that that's fantastic because it's not like we got to go out and get something, different or special. And maybe some people would have said it should be rechargeable instead. I'm okay with the 2032 batteries. I think that's all right. Anyway, that would just be the only thing that I would have wanted. You linked to a story from Hartley, Charlton, and MacRumors, I think does a great job with this table here of showing you the differences of pretty much everything you were just saying. up to 50% farther precision finding range. And that's what you were talking about when it gets into that I think Apple calls that precision finding as opposed to just sort of the general Find My on that. And that's available if you have an Apple Watch, even Series 9 or later, which I think is pretty cool. 50% louder speaker. And by the way, if you hadn't noticed, this past week, there was a slight update to iOS 26 0.2.1, right? And I think that they updated that mainly for some of these AirTags. I think also because we'll get to talk about the Creator Studio here in just a little bit difference. The last thing that I thought was interesting here, Jeff, is it's just a little tiny bit heavier with the Apple AirTag 2. Is 11 grams before. Now it's 11.8 grams. So be careful there. Don't hurt yourself picking that up.
Exactly. I can't feel it. I saw that number 2. I mean, I've one in each hand. There's no way that my senses can perceive that difference. I will tell you also, if I may respectfully disagree with the gentleman from Ohio, because I don't want them to be thinner. And I say that because I want to have backward compatibility. I agree with you that it's nice to have something super thin for your wallet, but you know what? Apple's Find My technology is opened up to third-party developers. I already have something that's very thin on my wallet made by Eufy, which works with Find My.
I remember we've talked about that.
My preference would be, rather than make it just a little bit more svelte. I mean, sure, if Apple was developing the AirTag for the first time ever today, with today's technology, it could be even thinner, and that would be nicer to be more like a wafer. But considering that we already have 5 years of an AirTag ecosystem, which is a funny thing to say, but it's true. I mean, you go to Amazon, there are countless devices that you can buy that will hold an AirTag in any way, shape, or form. And I think it is far more valuable to have the new one the exact same size as before, so that you can just use all those things and purchase them. So I hear what you're saying, but I think Apple made the right choice.
The other thing, just quickly, that somebody had said, I can't really see it in here, that how many airlines that now AirTag is compatible. Well, I say compatible with. It's just the idea that you can share that. I mean, I remember we talked about this maybe a year and a half ago, when it was just like, I think it was maybe Southwest and United or something like that. And now it's almost universal. I think almost every airline now you can share your location with, because a lot of times, obviously, AirTags are put into luggage, as you were talking about earlier. That's what I use them for. Although now I've greatly expanded it, to your point too, not only just the keys, but the ladies in my life, my wife and my daughter, have AirTags in their purse. I mean, we have it in the car. Like, in fact, I think I've got 2 more extra, because I kept buying them when they went on sale. That's one of the other things that we talked about last fall, that they were going down in price. You can get 4 of them for $69 or so. And we thought, okay, well, that's a sign they're getting rid of some inventory and maybe they're going to release something new, but it just took them a little bit longer. Anyway, that's pretty fun. I think I'm going to get those, because you can get, I think, 5 of them for the price of 4 from Costco. At least that was one of the links right now. But the price for 4 of them is $99 right now.
Yeah. One quick thing on the airline thing. Apple, in their press release, and I mentioned this in my post today, they have a statement. I don't know what data they use to prove this, but they say that AirTags over the last 5 years have reduced baggage delays by 26%.
Oh, wow.
Reduced the incidences of truly lost luggage by 90%, which, I don't know how they come up with those numbers, but I will tell you, most of us that have done any kind of travel over our lives have had a situation. I try to avoid checking my bag as much as possible, but sometimes you have to. And we've all been in that situation where you're waiting at the conveyor belt and your bag is not there. And you're like, oh, and it's so frustrating in the old days to have to go to the counter, and am I going to ever see my bag again? It really is. And nowadays, I had that happen to me in the old days once or twice. Since my AirTag, it hasn't happened, but I know if it does, because of the stories I read from others, I want to know exactly where it is. And so if I have landed in a city and I know that my AirTag is in that airport, I want to know that. On the other hand, if my luggage never even made the plane in the first place and it's still back in New Orleans, well, then that's a whole different story. And now I need to know, I need to go buy some new clothes or whatever it is. And so that is information that in the old days you would not have had. And so, again, 90%, I don't know where they got that number from, but there, in terms of, peace of mind and knowledge, it's a huge difference. I have no doubt.
Apple releases a new product and then they acquire a new company. Well, I mean, wow. I did not see this coming. I'm not so surprised except for the fact that I didn't even know about this company, but apparently it's pretty big and pretty well known. There's just so many numerous AI companies today, but Apple acquires Israeli audio AI startup Q.AI. And I saw many people reporting on this past week.
My goodness. I mean, we almost buried the lead here. I mean, it's fun to have a new product in our hand, and this is just theoretical for the future. But you say people knew about it. I feel like I know something about the state of AI. I keep up with this, and this company was not on my radar screen at all. And it should have been, because the company was founded by what is the person? Maisels, I forget his first name, but it's the same person that previously came up. He came up with a company called PrimeSense, which Apple purchased years ago, and they used that to come out with. We know that nowadays your iPhone will use the sensor to look at you and stuff, as opposed to the old Touch ID. And they used technology from his former company to replace the fingerprint sensor with the Face ID. And so this guy knows what he's doing. And his new company here that I had never heard of before, Q.AI, what they're doing is fascinating. In fact, Brett, I know you have things loaded up, but for you showing on your screen, can you just go to the website, just type Q.AI in your browser and hit return?
Q.AI.
The website was still working last week. Okay, it's still there. So even though Apple's purchased it, the website tells you almost nothing. Almost
I was going to say very minimal here.
Very, very minimal. But they have this logo, which is showing on your screen right now, and I'll read it because it's a sentence. In a world full of noise, we craft a new kind of quiet. In a world full of noise, we craft a new kind of quiet. What does that mean? Well, apparently what it means is, and they've got patents for this, is they have apparently come up with a way to use AI to understand what people are saying. This has been around for a while, but to be especially good at it when you need quiet. So for example, if somebody is just whispering, they can apparently understand a low whisper. Or if you're in, and this is perhaps more realistic, you're in a crowded environment and you want to pick out that one voice that's talking to you from all of the noise. Maybe you're in that airport looking for your lost luggage. Their technology is apparently really good at using AI to figure that out. And we can imagine all sorts of ways that Apple would want that technology to make Siri better, or related to that, so that to the extent that you're using voice to interact with an AI to do something else, to actually understand your voice in the first place. And what amazed me is it's not just audio. Because that's what I thought it was going to be, is, they're doing a better job of separating the wheat from the chaff using audio technology. And that makes sense to me. I can understand how you could use AI that way. But it's also other sensors too, like visual. And they have this patent that was described that can actually, from your facial expressions and from micro movements of your lips, it could understand what you're saying without any audio at all, which to me, that's like reading lips. I've never seen this in real life, but I always see it like in the movies, like somebody is deaf, but they can read your lips and understand what you're saying. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. Or even if I think of 2001: A Space Odyssey, when Hal did that just by reading lips. So they have technology that allows you to read lips. And you think to yourself, well, how is that useful? Because, when would my iPhone, my camera's not on all the time. This gets back to me to something that we talked about last week. Remember last week we were talking about the rumor that Apple might be coming up with like a little AI pin that would stick on, you would attach to your shirt, and it would have some sort of a camera, not that it's taking pictures of the world around you, but that it would sense the world around you. Wouldn't that be interesting if this Q.AI company's technology, Apple used that, and again, this is probably years away, to sense the world around you and just have a better understanding of things, not just, who is the person? What are they saying? I can't hear them, but just from their lips moving, I could tell what they're saying. And their technology also, there's other things it senses too, like what did it say? They actually do say emotions. I don't know what that is, but all sorts of things that they can sense, a heart rate, respiration. I mean, my goodness.
So facial skin, micro movements. Wow.
This is crazy pants. And who knows, maybe they're just in development. Who knows? But this is all very futuristic stuff. And Apple paid big bucks for this company.
Yeah, they did.
billion. I don't know about you, Brett. I do not have an extra $2 billion lying around. Of course, Apple does because they have tons of money.
Yes.
But this is the biggest Apple acquisition in the history of the company, with the one exception of just over a decade ago when they purchased Beats for $3 billion, which of course led to the Apple Music Store, which so many of us use today, their competitor Spotify, not to mention a lot of the Beats technology, the headphones and stuff like that. That was a big acquisition for Apple, but they had the money, and in retrospect, I think it made sense. So this is the early days. When Apple bought the guy's prior company, PrimeSense, it took them a number of years from their time they acquired the company to the time when Face ID came out. So who knows how long it will be before they start to implement some of the stuff that Q.AI was working about. But this is incredibly, incredibly interesting.
I got to suspect they're going to fast track some of this, because we just talked about a week or two ago the agreement that Apple made with Google to utilize Gemini. Like, did finally somebody light a fire under Apple to like, we've got to get going with some of this AI stuff? We talked about it from 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, where they went to WWDC and talking about everything that they were doing in the plans, and I think kind of fell on their face a little bit on this. Maybe they're switching gears a little bit. Instead of trying to develop internally, they're going to like, well, okay, there's some good stuff at Google with Gemini. There's some great stuff with this Q&AI. Why not try to take advantage of that? Which I remember a lot of people were being constructively critiquing Apple, that they should have maybe done some of that, a closer integration with OpenAI maybe from the very beginning. But wow, hearing you talk about this makes me just really, really curious and excited to see where it's going. And people are, I like this article from Ryan Christoffel. They're talking about this could maybe finally make Siri what we all want it to be, and more from that. It just really interesting. So, and it looks like that there was 100 employees at this Q.AI is what they said, right? And they're all going to now become Apple employees, and we'll see where that goes. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So this was my next point. Is we all know, we've talked about this in the past, Apple tried to develop the core AI technology themselves. They weren't coming up with something that was as good as the competitors, and they ultimately decided to collaborate with Google on their Gemini AI. But the real thing for me is, and the future will tell what the right is, does it matter if you own the underlying AI technology, or is what really matters is what you do with the AI technology? And in fact, I think I linked to an article this week for somebody, maybe it was Jason Snell, talking about this, is what Apple has always been, here you go. What Apple has always been really good at is taking technology, which can be confusing, right, and making it for the rest of us. It's the computer for the rest of us was the original logo of what they in the 1980s for the original Mac, or even the Apple. This is what, is exciting for me, is I want to take AI and make it practical, make it useful. I struggle with this, not struggle, but I think about this all the time in my law practice, because everything, you can't throw a rock at legal technology nowadays without hitting something about AI. Everybody's doing AI this, AI that. And some of it to me is just sort of doing it so that they can say that they're doing it and check the box. But what I really want is useful AI. I want it in a way that makes my life better, that makes my law practice better, that makes me a better attorney, that makes me a better person. And Apple historically has been the right company for that. They're not just going to have a computer like an IBM PC, they're going to have a computer that is easier to use because of the GUI interface and everything else, so that you can actually do things with it more easily. And this is what I want. And wouldn't it be wonderful if Apple can get better at taking the AI promise and turning it into a reality? And so now we get back to the acquisition. You just mentioned that they have, 100 employees, you said? So these are 100 people who are really good at AI, at least one would hope, right? And if all of these 100 people are now Apple employees, and they can put their smart minds, they've been doing some incredible stuff, it sounds like, if they can now be a part of deciding how Apple can take the abilities of AI and do something with it. Like, for example, taking the abilities that AI have and using it to read people's lips, as we just talked about, or, sense noises in a crowded environment. This is what I want, because at the end of the day, I don't want AI for the sake of AI on my phone. What I want is a feature that relies upon AI to do its magic, sure, but I just want a feature that is useful. I want to say that I never used to be able to do X, but now I can, and that is something that makes my
Right.
life better. So this is what, and I think this is, this gets back to the Beats acquisition. Apple purchased Beats for a number of reasons. They wanted to have an Apple Music store, and that allowed them to fast track it. But there were a lot of people at the company Beats that really knew music, right? They had the relationships with the industry, they understood it. And Apple, people talk about an acqui-hire. You're acquiring a company for who you're hiring. They got all those great music people inside of Apple. Some of them were celebrities, some of them were not well known, but they were incredibly smart. And my hope is that and I think this is why you spend $2 billion in a company. Yes, you're buying their technology. You're excited to the promise, but you're also getting the people and the things that those people can develop. This is the stuff that could take a few years before it comes to fruition, but it is nothing but potential. And after the last, 18 months, Brett, of us talking about how Apple has been hitting these speed bumps in AI,
right.
Boy,
right.
doesn't it seem, I mean, maybe I'm just a wide-eyed optimist, but it seems to me like Apple has got its act together and has the potential for things to be really exciting from an AI standpoint over the next couple of years. I'm ready for it.
I'm ready for it. I'm just a little hesitant, a little skeptical right now.
See. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. So Apple releases a new product. They acquire a new company, and they launched a new subscription this week. The Apple Creator Studio. I have to tell you, I upgraded to 26.2.1, I think is the newest version now. And I opened up my iPad and my iPhone, and I didn't have a choice. I had to upgrade my Keynote app and my Pages app. It looks like on the Mac, I can still have the old Keynote and the new Keynote. I had to download the new Keynote on my Mac. So it looks like I have both of those apps. I didn't know I was sort of going to be forced into doing this. It makes sense. I get it. But it's like, I just wish I would have had a little bit more heads up on it. Now, that said, I'm pretty excited about this. In fact, I think even reading your notes today, Jeff, I think I am going to at least try the Apple Creator Studio. You said, I think, we can even get at least 1 month, maybe 3 months free, depending on your devices and stuff that you have. But it's like, okay, that's good. I'm going to try it. Thanks, Apple. Thanks for giving me, sort of a little trial period there. But now my new Keynote has a bunch of stuff that I didn't really necessarily want in there, and that frankly doesn't work right now unless I do upgrade or subscribe to Apple Creator Studio. I just I know we talked about this the last couple of weeks. This didn't really sit very well with me, but we'll see where it goes. I'm going to give it a chance, I think, on this.
Yeah, give it a chance. I mean, I know it may seem invasive. It's suddenly a new icon and it looks different, but that happens whenever apps update.
I don't like that.
Apps update, and there's always that series of, this is not what I did before. But then you adjust and it's fine. So yeah, like you said, there is the new version. And so if you're using iOS devices like an iPhone or an iPad, you just automatically get the new version. And then the question is, do you want to use the free version, or which you now have, or do you want to pay the subscription to get the additional features? And what I noticed is that when you go to pay, and you can either pay a month or you can pay for a year, but when you go to pay, I say pay in quotes because I'm actually not paying any money. Regardless of which option you choose, it looks like they give you the first 3 months for free. It said on my screen, because you have a new device, you get 3 months free, but I don't have a new device. I'm using an iPad that's many years old. And so I think just everybody gets that. So, and you can cancel before that. So anyone, you might as well sign up for one of them, monthly or yearly, and then just mark your calendar. And if you decide the extra features don't matter to me, I'm just going to go ahead and cancel. But and we talked last week about what you get, for Keynote, for example, just to talk about that one. There are some new templates in there. Does that matter for you? Do you want those new templates? You can decide whether you want them or not. The bigger thing is on the more creative side. You now have, for example, Pixelmator Pro, which used to only exist on the Mac, and now also exists on the iPad. And I haven't played with it yet, but I would tell you, I decided to go ahead and pay for a 1 year, although I guess I'm not really paying it for 3 months. And I started to look at Pixelmator Pro, and it was nice because I already know how to use the Photomator app on my iPad, and it's similar, just with more features. It's sort of like, a lot of the aesthetic approach of the Photomator app, but it's a little more like Photoshop with, more sophisticated use of, layers and shapes and things that you can do. So, anyway, it looks, I need to explore it, but I'm glad to have this new option. Plus, if you use Final Cut Pro on an iPad, the new version's much better. You now have, background,
Okay.
saving things and other stuff and lots more compatibility. So everything is better with these new versions. Or at least different. I mean, you may think that you like the old icons better or whatever, or maybe you like the new icons. That's a personal thing. But so
Right.
this is the future, and it'll be interesting. And but the real problem, I think, is, as we said, for some people, if you don't really want to use video or photo stuff on your iPad or your iPhone, especially your iPad, you may say, I don't want to spend this much money because I'm just going to continue using the stuff that I already use, like Pages and Keynote. And then you're in a quandary because you're like, well, there's these minor new features that you need to pay a month. Is it worth paying $129 a year just to get those minor improvements? I mean, you need to decide that. If you use Keynote a lot, then I guess it is. If you don't, then you don't. I mean, you could always just, pay $13 for a single month and then cancel at the end of the month when you don't need it anymore. But but we talked about that story last week. It's nothing new there. So, but it's now out and it's now available, and you can go ahead.
And to be fair, everything in Keynote on my iPad is there that I'm familiar with. It may just look slightly different. It's just I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 new little purple buttons that have not been there before. And if I tap on them, I don't even know what they do, but if I tap on one, it'll tell me, do you want, you could use this. It's whatever it is. It's really, a great thing. I could generate slides. This one, what does this do? Generate presenter notes. Like all of these AI tools, I just can't use them until I actually have a subscription. So as I said, I think I'm going to do that at some point soon. I just haven't done this, but this review from Jason Snell, really good. I'll make sure that that's in the show notes because I think he does a great job of just going through all of them. But he actually talks about this. As you said, you can pay $13 a month, which I think if you do that per month, it comes to like $156 a year or something like that, right? Is that right? But you can pay $129 upfront for a whole year. And this is amazing. Like, Jason even talks about the fact that he is a big Photoshop user, even though he just barely scratches the surface. But the equivalent, if you paid for all of these apps with like from Adobe, that you would be close to $839 a year, which is pretty amazing. Now, there's all kinds of different subscription levels and stuff from Adobe that you could do on some of that. But I thought that was interesting. Also, if you are a student or a teacher, it's only $3 a month or $30 a year for these apps, which is good. Apple's always fantastic about making sure that there's educational options there. Now, the last thing, I just barely did a quick search for this, Jeff, and I think you answered this last week as well. If I have a family subscription, or I have my iCloud account allows my family to share any subscriptions that I have, that they could actually also use these apps. And so, in effect, I might be paying $129 a year, but that means all 4 of us in my family could actually use these apps. Isn't that true? Which in my mind, that's an amazing bundle. Like that's burying the lead right there. Like, are you kidding me? That's amazing that all of us could have access to it. I don't have to have individual subscriptions.
Yeah, and that's the difference between the student account, the educational discount of $30 a year. I think it's just a single license, whereas if you pay $129 a year, you get the family license. And so I agree. So that's the family,
nice. Yes.
And that's always been true of the app stores. If one person in your family buys something, others can use it as well.
That's great.
With some exceptions, depends upon how the in-app purchases work for different apps, but typically that's the way it works. Yeah.
For Apple apps, like these are all Apple apps, obviously, if we didn't make that clear, and you do. So in other words, if I get it as, I guess I'm the administrator, whatever you call it, the family leader, for my iCloud. And so now all of my family members can access the iCloud. And when they get an iCloud, I can share that subscription. I'm just saying $129 for all 4 of us to be able to use. I think you can share it to up to 5 people in a family subscription. That's an amazing deal there because we're all Mac and all Apple and everything. And the fact that they could get access to that as well is pretty good. Let's talk about a few more apps here. A great article you linked to from John Gruber and Daring Fireball. He's been meaning to talk about this for a while. But Apple had the top iPhone apps in the US for 2025 the free ones, the top 20 free iPhone apps. I thought this was a pretty interesting list. And of course, John Gruber had some interesting comments to make about it as well.
It is, yeah. Here's about the free and the paid apps here, but let's mention, because I think it's interesting. There's so many iPhones in the world, right? And free apps, anyone can get free apps. And so I think it's really, it tells you something about what people are using their phones for, to take a look at the list. And just to go through it quickly, I mean, we know some of these won't have to say anything about it, but the number one free app is ChatGPT. I mean, if you wonder if AI is important, everybody's getting ChatGPT.
Boom.
And then you have number two, Threads, which is social media. Number three is the Google app. Number four is TikTok, another, social app. Number five is WhatsApp Messenger. In the United States, Apple's Messages app is pretty popular, but around the world, WhatsApp is by far the number one messenger, plus it's cross-platform. So that's very popular. Number six is Instagram, again, back to social media. Number seven is YouTube. We know what that is. Number eight is Google Maps. Apple has a great Maps app, but a lot of people prefer or want to have them both. I know that you prefer Google Maps, and I use Google Maps all the time, even though I prefer Apple Maps. Number nine is the Gmail app. So just to pause right there, I mean, that shows you how important Gmail is in the world.
Yes.
It's an email app that people love it. Number 10 is Google Gemini, yet another AI app, but that's in the top 10. So two of the top 10 are AI apps. Facebook's number 11. Number 12 is CapCut, which is an app that you can use to edit video. It's sort of like a mini version of Final Cut Pro. And I know that people love CapCut for things like putting together like TikTok videos or stuff like that. Number 13 is Temu, T-E-M-U, which is a Chinese company that it's sort of like a Chinese version of Amazon. And it's interesting that this is so popular. I mean, of course, a huge number of iPhone users are in China. And so for them, I mean, Temu is everywhere. But I know that you can even use Temu in the United States too. So that's interesting. Number 14 surprised me a little bit. It's the T-Life app, which is the app that if you're a T-Mobile subscriber that you use to do things with T-Mobile. Isn't that interesting? Because I don't think of T-Mobile as being, I mean, it's a big carrier, but not one of the very biggest. And yet good for them. Their app is number 14 on the list. Number 15 is Telegram Messenger. It's another messenger app, the message app that people use. Number 16. So this is, now we're getting to something I don't know. Lemon8, Lifestyle Community. I actually don't know what Lemon8 is. Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all.
Number 17 is Spotify, which is obviously a big competitor to Apple Music. 18 is Google Chrome. This is interesting because the Safari browser is so good on mobile, but some people do prefer Chrome. And again, Chrome is different on the mobile than it is on the computer because it's actually using, I believe it's using Apple's underlying WebKit technology. But anyway, it's interesting. Number 18. Number 19 is Snapchat, another social media app. And number 20 is another one I don't know. It's an app called Red Note. Share, Connect, Love. It looks like it's a Chinese logo on it. So maybe this is
it won't even let me go to that.
So I think that's an app popular in the country of China. So so it's just almost all of these are apps that we all know, but it was interesting to see the 20 of them. I want to briefly talk about the paid ones too, but anything that I went through those quickly. Anything
well, first of all, what I find interesting, these are quote free apps, but I think every single one of these has in-app purchases. Most of them, maybe not like Google Maps or so, but if you download ChatGPT, it might be a free app, and a lot of people are probably using it for free, but there's an in-app purchase, right? If you wanted to subscribe to the professional version of that. The other thing I found interesting, if I'm not mistaken, out of the top 20 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at least are Google apps. Out of the top 20 free apps that are most popular in 2025, all come from Google. And I might have even missed one. I mean, that includes YouTube and Google Maps and everything on there as well. But other than that, everything with you. I mean, I'm not surprised at all that most of it is around social media, people just getting into it. I was a little surprised that ChatGPT was number 1 on there, but interesting. Even John Gruber says Google has 6 apps on the list, including 5 in the top 10. And he also goes on to say that even a couple of the Facebook or Meta apps, which he says they're certainly no friend of Apple. They have 4 apps on the list, including 3 in the top 10. So I just thought that was interesting as well.
Lemon8, by the way, is an app from a company in Singapore that it's not from the folks that make TikTok, but it's used, actually it might be affiliated with that company, but it uses some of the underlying TikTok stuff. And it
Interesting.
sort of feels like an Instagram or a Pinterest, in that you sort of share, curated information or pictures on fashion, food, travel, stuff like that. So it's not one that I'm familiar with, but that's what that app is. So then those are, with minor exceptions, those are well known, which makes sense because they're free, so everybody can use them. Gruber also lists the top 20 paid apps, and I'm not going to read every one of them, but I will say that here there are some that you may have heard of, but for me, there's many that I had not heard of before. And it just goes to show that once people pay money, and for a lot of people, that's a big thing to pay money, but then you get into a whole, different types of apps. Number one is called Hot Schedules, which I'm guessing is something to do with
Never heard of that.
or stuff like that.
Great.
Empower your team with workforce management, stay connected and stuff like that.
Okay.
I won't go through it. Paprika's on here, which is, I know, is a good one for recipes.
My wife loves paprika. Yeah, she uses it all the time.
What else?
Things is on here, right? You got things down here. You made things.
And I use the Things app for my to-do list. My wife uses it extensively too. And that's a really good one. And one thing that
browser. This browser made it. Yeah.
So this is actually, it's not an iPhone or an iPad app. This is an Apple Watch app. And I did a review of it a long time ago.
I remember you did.
You say U browser, and I know why you're saying that out loud.
Yeah, what is it? Umlaut?
That first little thing is whatever that little Greek letter is. Apparently, it stands for micro when it's used in scientific technology.
Okay.
And so the idea is it's micro browser, and it's called that because this is a web browser for your Apple Watch. And you may see my Apple Watch screen is so tiny. Why in the world would I want a web browser? But on that very rare instance where you want to pull up some information that is on a web page, and assuming that it's a web page that works with this micro browser app, it will work. And I will tell you, it's very rare that my iPhone is not with me, but sometimes that's the case. And I have had instances in the past where I have just had my Apple Watch and I wanted to pull up something really small from a website. Sometimes it was even something I wanted to look at something that I wrote on iPhone JD, and I'm like, what did I say in this sentence? And I could pull it up on my Apple Watch. And for using the internet in a pinch, it does work. So, and it's not a very expensive app. I forget what I paid for it, just a couple of bucks. So, but how interesting that there is an app that's an Apple Watch only app, and it made the top 20 list of top paid apps.
That's crazy.
Good for them. Bravo.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Yeah. Good stuff on that. I'll make sure that I put the link to John Gruber's list, and then Apple has their official list in here as well. But these are always fun to kind of go through and look at and see and compare, like with what you have. I remember talking about U-Browser years ago when that first came out, and I did the same thing. I bought it and I just have it on my watch. I rarely ever use it, but every once in a while it's like, oh yeah, because people might think, well, of course Safari is on my iPhone, Safari's on my iPad, Safari should be on my Apple Watch. No, they didn't actually put it on there. And so having this as the micro browser is interesting there. Let's do a Where You At segment. We haven't done one in a while, but this was an interesting story from, he's a journalist, I believe, Stephen Pollard. This is a story in the Times where he's a confessed techno geek, and he likes having the newest and greatest technology. He even actually has leukemia, I think he talks about here in this article. But the Apple Watch was able to find some weird rhythms in his heartbeat, where that led him to go and preemptively get some care for that before it became a tragedy.
Yeah. That was interesting is that, he said he was successfully treating his leukemia with all of this medication. And he says, what a wonderful world we live in, that, he has a type of, there's actually some good treatments for him. But what he did not know is when a doctor had prescribed some medicine for him for another condition he was having, that there was this interaction between medicines. And we always hear about this, right? And this is why you want to make sure your doctor knows everything you're taking. And yet, even though he was did everything right, for whatever reason, the doctor that prescribed something to him should not have done so. And there was this interaction with the medicines, and suddenly he was in a bad situation. And, fortunately, he realized it, and he managed to call his sister and get some help. But when the doctor was trying to figure out what was going on, the key factor was that he was able to say, you know what, my Apple Watch has been giving me these alerts about such and such. And the doctor is like, oh, well, if that's what's going on, I know exactly what's happening here. This is a bad interaction. Fortunately, he caught it in time before it was too late. But so it's, we hear stories about people, my Apple Watch saved my life because I fell down. My Apple Watch saved my life because I was lost in the desert. All these things. But this is the first time that I have seen a report of adverse medicine interaction that the Apple Watch played a role in there. And his doctor told him that this could have saved your life. So, wow.
That's amazing. And you had another quick story about the Apple Watch 2, a new study confirming that it improves the detection of atrial fibrillation. I don't know if I can pull it up here, the story or not, but just interesting to continue to hear how the Apple Watch, like you said, I mean, maybe some people would think it's a little bit of a stretch to say, well, it saved my life. But to your point, if it plays a role and you at least, making an inquiry with your practitioner, your healthcare practitioner, then by golly, that's fantastic.
Yeah. This is nothing new. We've always known that the Apple Watch can play a role.
Right.
But this was an independent outside study that confirmed it, which, you would hope that Apple is doing their own research, but it's nice to have the outside folks do their independent research and confirming that, this does make a difference for atrial defibrillation.
Now for the review we have all been waiting for an entire week, Jeff. How was Top Dogs on the Apple Vision Pro?
I am sad.
Have you watched it yet?
That I have no firsthand knowledge, and it's not for lack of trying. Typically, when Apple comes out with a new show on a Friday, it actually comes out shortly after midnight Eastern time,
right?
Which means for me, 11 p.m. Central time. So last night I actually went, and before I went to sleep, I'm like, let me put on my Vision Pro, let me look, and I found the page. It's right there advertised on the Vision Pro, but unfortunately it wasn't available yet. So I'm guessing that maybe when I get home tonight, it will be there. So I haven't seen it. But what I did appreciate was the report from Jason Snell. We've been talking about Jason Snell a lot today.
Yes.
He and his partner Dan Morin, they got it. Apple released, sometimes when movies or TV shows come out, they'll give like the teaser, the pre-release versions to certain reviewers and stuff. And so earlier this week, Jason and Dan also were able to get a look at it. And what was interesting to me here is it just showed out. We talked about AI being cutting edge and it's the future. The immersive video in Vision Pro is also just such a new thing that we're all figuring out how to do it. We talked about this with the basketball game a couple of weeks ago, the Lakers game.
Yes, I remember.
It was just such a new way and different way to experience a game that they're just trying things out, and some things are going to work and some things are not. I remember reading this a long time ago when movie technology first came out, which was like the late 1800s or something like that. One of the things that they would do for movies is they would have a play on stage and just have a single movie camera that recorded it, because at the time, the only way that people really contemplated stories being told through actors was a play. And so, of course, if you have a movie of it, it would just be a single camera looking and staying in one position, looking at the movie. And then over time, people realized that movies could be better if the camera didn't just look at the stage, but actually moved around. And of course, movies 100 years later are much more. So we're at that same stage with interactive. People are not sure, what should I do with this 3D camera? And so what Jason says is his review is that he said the camera moved around too much. And I've noticed this, that again, not from this video, but from other videos, when something is done with immersive 3D video, you find yourself looking up, looking down, looking around, and you sort of need the camera to stay still so that you yourself can have time to understand the environment and appreciate it. It's okay to have the camera change angles, but you can't do it that quickly because you need to get your bearings. And so he said the director of this one moved the camera too much for him to get his bearings and did too many quick cuts, which is the world we live in, right? In this TikTok world, a YouTube world of like, we have these quick shorts. I mean, how many movies do we have nowadays that things are so quick to go from shot to shot? And you look back at a movie that was made in the 70s or 80s, and you know how it feels sort of slow? It's like, why isn't there more action? But it was just a different way of filming things. And so we're in the same place with this. So anyway, at some point this weekend, maybe tonight, I will have a chance to look at the fun dogs and see if I agree with him. But regardless of whether I agree with his take or not, I know what he's talking about, that this is new technology. But again, the Vision Pro is so new. We have lots of time to figure all this stuff out. We got to keep pushing the envelope, seeing what works, trying it out.
That's a nice In the Vision Pro segment that goes to the dogs. We'll hear about it next week from you then. How about a quick In the Show segment to wrap this up today? The outstanding new season of Shrinking is going to be coming to Apple TV pretty soon. And then you had another story here with all of the other shows that are coming to Apple TV pretty soon.
Let me just say, have you watched Shrinking at all?
I think I watched the first episode a couple of years ago because it's been out for a while, right? I mean,
yes,
this has Harrison Ford in it. Is that right? Yeah,
that's right. That's right. We watched it, and I remember when I started it years ago, the first episode or two was a little slow, but I got into it, and then I was like, you know what? This is a charming show. I really enjoyed it. It's a really nicely done show. The very first TV show that Harrison Ford has ever done. It's a good show. I really liked it. It's from Bill Lawrence, who of course did Scrubs and so many other fantastic shows like Ted Lasso. And Shrinking is a great show, and I'm glad that it continues to move forward. And a little bit of a spoiler alert, but we mentioned this in the past. I know that this new season 3, which came out I think 2 days ago on Wednesday, I haven't seen it yet. At some point, it's going to have Michael J. Fox in it, which will be interesting because we all love him. So I would just say, if you're looking for a new show to watch, I really like Shrinking. It's funny, but it's also got some very serious moments in it. And my wife and I have really enjoyed watching the first 2 seasons. Season 3 is now available, and Apple has already picked it up for a season 4. So this show it's good. And I will tell you, it's worth putting, anyone listening to this, it's worth putting in your list. If you already know it, then you're excited like I am for season 3. And if you haven't checked it out yet, it's worth checking out. And I also see that in terms of new stuff coming this month, there's a movie called Eternity, which I had not paid attention to yet. I don't know much about it. And I'm looking, we'll have to see. Apple's movies, in my estimation, have not been as good as their TV shows. They've had a few that are good. Like I did enjoy F1, and it just got an Oscar nomination. But we'll see. So it's a romantic comedy. If you're looking for a good romantic comedy, on February 13th, that one will come out.
Souls entering the afterlife have 1 week to decide where to spend eternity. Okay,
that's interesting.
Interesting twist on that. More monsters. I still haven't seen the Monarch, the first season of the monsters. This is, I guess, King Kong
and the Godzilla show.
The Godzilla show, right? So that's coming out, and then, like you said, new episodes of Shrinking, and then Hijack. I haven't watched the first Hijack. I've kind of stayed away from it just because I travel so much. I'm like, I don't want to, I don't want to know any of that. But a few other shows are going to be dropping as well, which is good.
I will tell you, season 1 of Hijack was I hear what you're saying.
I know you've talked about it before.
I don't think it's going to make you scared. It was good. It's an action-packed, nonstop, adrenaline rush. I really enjoyed season 1. And I've just started watching season 2. I think I'm 1 or 2 episodes in, and it's this season 2. It looks like season 2 has more to do with a train than an airplane. We got trains, planes, and automobiles.
So
I can already tell that it's got some twists to keep it interesting, and the star of it, and I'm forgetting his name. Is it
Idris? Yeah.
How you pronounce his name? He's excellent. I first got to know him when he was in The Wire way back when, one of the best shows of all time.
Right.
So I like Hijack. If you're looking for something exciting, it's a great show.
Well, I was just thinking, I've got a long flight coming up, and I was like, maybe that's something I could watch. And then I'm like, I don't know if I want to I don't want my seatmate to look over and see me watching plans on the Hijack. Anyway, but I have heard many good things about it.
Yeah.
In the know, Jeff, and all of listening, both Jeff and I are big fans of 1Password. So anytime that I go to a new site or sign up for something, I always use 1Password because it is my trusted repository that I can go and find everything that I've logged into. Now, recently, however, there have been several sites or subscriptions or services that I sign up, and all of you have seen this. I was just talking with somebody about this the other day, that you can go to a site and it will give you typically 3 options. You can sign up with an email address, just like we've always done, right? And then you put in your password. You could sign up with your Google account. So in other words, you don't have to come up with your own password. You just use your Google password that you already have. Or you also see a button that says sign in with Apple. And I like this. I don't use it all the time, but every once in a while, especially if there's apps, Like if you download an app, like let's say, Carrot Weather or something like that, instead of creating my own entire new custom login or password, I'll just say, use my Apple ID. And I like it on the iPhone because instead of having to remember a password, it will actually just use my Face ID. In fact, I think it's not even really a password. It's kind of hard to say a password because they use that. It's a token-based cryptographic key, right? It's all built in and saved within your iCloud account. But here's the issue that I keep running into, Jeff. When I haven't gone to that site that I signed up with Apple, and back a couple of months later, it asked me to log in. And I can't remember if I used my own password or did I use my Apple login. Typically if I go and upgrade my iPad and I had to re-log into some of these services and it says, log in. And I'm like, oh, I can't remember. Did I create a password for that? Or did I use the sign in with Apple? Because I will go to 1Password. I know that I've got an account for this service or this app, but 1Password doesn't have it in there because it wasn't saved in 1Password. And I kept thinking to myself, okay, what should I do when I log in to sign in with Apple? Do I just note that in 1Password somewhere? Because I've done that for a couple of them. But I was happy to report where this is getting to is when you sign in with your Apple account onto a service, it actually automatically it includes it into the Apple Passwords app. Now, there's a couple ways you can get to this, actually. If you go into your settings and you go into your iCloud account, I believe, in fact, let me just confirm this on my phone real quick. If you tap on your face and you go down, there is a sign in with Apple little option there. And if you tap on that, it'll actually go and it will show you all of the services or the apps that you've used the sign in with Apple option on there. So I've got the whole list here. Like, for example, day one, that really good calendar diary that you can put in, like a journaling app in Apple. I didn't create a day one login with my own email. I just use my Apple email. And I like using this because sometimes you can say, don't use my real email, just use my Apple email, right? And that's a good way to do that as well. And I just kind of like that. But if you go into your settings and you go into your iCloud settings, you can see sign in with Apple, and that's one place to find it. You can also open your Apple Passwords app, and then you can see them all listed there. Now, they'll be mixed in with all of the other logins if you use that Passwords app. I just don't ever use the Passwords app. I use the 1Password app. But in many cases, a lot of times I'm like, would get frustrated just simply because I didn't have anything in 1Password. I needed to log into the service. And I was like, well, how do I know if I used my Apple sign in or not? And this is at least the best way I know now to be able to find if I used the sign in with Apple service, which again is a great thing. It's just I can't keep track of whether I use my own email address or whether I use the sign in with Apple. And at least now I hate to have to check two places, but this is the way to do it. The last thing quickly I'll say is once I found this, I said, okay, well, can I export all of these sign in with Apple passwords from the Passwords app and then import it into my 1Password app? Well, apparently they don't let you export any of your sign in with Apple options there. So right now I can't share them back and forth between the two apps, which gets me a little frustrated, but at least now I know that there's one location or a couple of locations that I can go to see what I've used sign in with Apple. So that's my tip for the day.
This is a great tip. I didn't know this. Like you, I typically use my password manager, 1Password, when I create logins and passwords. But every once in a while, I have a reason that it makes more sense to use the sign in with Apple. Sometimes it's because it's like a throwaway app. I'm not going to take the trouble of doing it. Just like, exactly. I just want to use it, get me in. If I ever go back, you'll know it. And sometimes there are other reasons that I do it. But I like you, I didn't really know that there's a list. And so I see that when I open up my settings app on my iPhone, at the very bottom where they have the search field, if I just type SIG, like the SIGN, I'm going to type those first three letters. And right at the top, I see the third option is sign in with Apple. And if I go there and I tap it, I can now see that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I would say maybe 15 or so things that I have an Apple sign in.
More than you thought, probably.
And some of these are apps that I haven't really used much.
Correct. Right.
But some of them are apps that I use all the time. And so it's interesting to see, like GoodNotes, for example. I could not use the GoodNotes app anymore, a PDF expert. And I guess I'm using
Yep.
Sign In with Apple because I share through iCloud and stuff like that, or TrialPad. So this is really interesting. I did not know there was a single list of all of those, and I'm really glad to know where they are in case I need to manage that. Thank you.
One other thing quickly that I find interesting, if you go into the Sign In with Apple in your iCloud, it just basically tells you this is what it, but if you go to that same login in your passwords app, it'll actually tell you the date that you created that, or that you did it. So that's helpful for me, because it's like, when did I create this Sign In with Apple account? Just having access to that information. Like if I go into day one, for example, I see that I created it on January 10th, 2021. So that just is helpful to me, and it tells me if I actually shared my email, or in some cases it'll tell me if I just chose to hide my email, right? That's one of the options when you do a Sign In with Apple, and it'll tell you that information in the passwords app as well.
This is cool. Thank you, Brett. I did not know any of this.
Absolutely.
Nice to know. My tip today is something that should have been the very first thing we talked about today, not the new AirTags, not the new AI, but the very exciting ABA, American Bar Association Tech Show Conference, which is going to be at the end of March. And I know the reason you didn't put it up front. It's because you are a modest man, and you are the co-chair this year, and you did not want to self-promote, but I will be happy to promote both you and the conference. I will tell you, I have been going to Tech Show almost not every year, but on and off for a very long time. The first time that I went there was, over 20 years ago, something like that.
Wow.
Tech Show itself has been around for like 40 years, right? I guess this is the 41st year.
This is 41st. Yep. This is the 41st conference.
You have been a board member for many years. You have been the chair once in the past, and you're going to be the chair again this year, along with Patrick Wright. But this is going to be a fantastic conference. So, what is this? If you're a lawyer, you need to get your CLEs. And if you want to do some CLEs that have to do with technology, there's a number of options out there. But the Tech Show is really one of the best. They're great sessions. I mean, every time I look at the schedule that I'm there, it's like, between 9 and 10, there are 6 different tracks. And I look at it and I'm like, well, I really want to do this one, but like there's another one that's good too. And maybe there'll be 1 or 2 that don't interest me, but there's going to always be several that do. And then it's a question of which one do I go to? And, sometimes I pick that based on who I think is a better presenter. But, it's a good problem to have, that there are so many. I learned so much from the sessions. That in itself is good. Things about AI, technology, security, new apps, everything in the world of legal technology you learn about. Second of all, the expo floor is always really, really good because there are all the vendors there, and they're paying money to bring their stuff, their people, because they want to sell you stuff, I suppose. And that's fine, but like it gives me a chance to get up close. I will tell you, just for example, last year at the expo floor, I won't name names, but there was a specific vendor that I was very curious if, for my law firm, because I'm the chair of our technology committee at our firm, I was like, we've got hundreds of lawyers. Do our lawyers want to use this? And I was able to sit there with the people and their product, see all the bells and whistles, talk to the people. And I was, for one of them, I was able to say, you know what? This actually does not meet a need that we have right now, but you can't know that unless I'm trying it. And then at the same time, just down the hallway, there was another one that I'm like, this is the bee's knees. This is really cool. And I'm so glad that I had a chance to see it firsthand. And it's not just see the technology. I mean, you're talking with the people from the company that make it, and they will sometimes tell you about future plans.
Oh yeah,
I remember many years ago, the fine folks at Lit Software, showed me a preview version of the timeline pad that is now a shipping product. But I got to see a sneak peek of it years ago at Tech Show when they were still working on it. So it's all those cool things that if you have an interest in law and technology, it's the place to be. Now, I could have stopped there, but as I mentioned in the post, this year, I just love the fact that thanks to your wise efforts, you managed to not just give us a tech show, Brett, but you managed to give us a Comic-Con type experience right next to us.
Oh yeah.
100,000 people are going to be going to the C2, E2 section, and it's going to be right next to Tech Show. So when you walk from the hotel to Tech Show's conference area, you're going to walk through this area that's going to be all the people wearing cosplay and all of the movie stuff and the comic stuff and entertainment. And it's just going to be excited. I have always wanted to go. I mean, again, I'm not going to sign up for this, but I've always wanted to see this, see this type of a thing. And the idea that I'm going to get a chance to walk through this every single day throughout the day, I may have to be doing a lot more walking. So maybe I'll have to skip some of those fun sessions that are good just to walk around and to experience this. And, I think it's hilarious because, I mean, how many the lawyers and law adjacent, we'll probably have, just a few thousand people at TECHSHOW, and it's going to be 100,000 people at this thing. So they're going to dwarf in terms, but the excitement and the energy. And what I love is that those of you planning TECHSHOW have decided to take advantage of that. And it looks to me like I'm just on the outside, but like I had to turn in my our papers. You know how for CLE you have the written papers, which are always really good for TECHSHOW. And when I was turning it in this week and looking at the templates that y'all are using, it looks obvious to me that y'all have like a sort of a comic book theme for TECHSHOW, which is going to be awesome. So like, everything that I love about TECHSHOW is great, but this year is going to be special. So I'm looking forward to it. I always meet, by the way, people that listen to our podcast and that
I know.
Read iPhone JD.
It's so
every
fun.
year we get to meet people, sometimes people that I only know from email, I get to meet them firsthand. And so like anyone listening to this, if it fits in your schedule to join us in Chicago, this is going to be a great year to come. So I really love, I can't wait myself. I'm going to have fun doing presentations. I'm doing one on iPads. I'm doing one on wearable technology. But just the whole experience is going to be great. So I just want to give a little plug, as you're planning your CLEs for the calendar year 2026, consider going to TECHSHOW. It's going to be awesome.
Thanks, Jeff. You can go to techshow.com. You can see it's going to be March. It's like the full day of March 26th, March 27th, and then a half a day on the Saturday of March 28th. But you can get all the information. We're currently upgrading and uploading all of the information to the website right now. So it's getting updated with everything on there. The sessions, very, very proud of. I'm thrilled to have you back. And I would just say quickly for anybody that comes, I mean, all the sessions are fantastic, but I'll just speak on Jeff's behalf. One of the things that I've always enjoyed, this is how Jeff and I originally met each other and got to know, we were both excited about a lot of the same things. And Jeff will answer any questions for you that you're there. That's what we enjoy so much, is just interacting with a lot of the people that come out. And it's just a good opportunity to interact and to talk with folks and to get some answers, or like, how are you doing this? And, we'll even sit there and show you things that we're doing. And it's just a lot of fun. So I'm so glad. Thanks for your write-up on there as well. Well, that's in a couple of months, but we've got a lot more to go between now and then, although we'll probably be talking about it a little bit more as well. Thanks, Jeff, as always, and we will talk with you next week.
Thanks, Brett. Bye-bye, everybody.